Welcome to Learner's Planet, my dear children. Children, in the previous session we discussed about some planets, right? So we will continue with the planets, with the information of more planets in this session. So let us start with this session. Okay, so the first planet which we are going to study in today's session is Saturn. As you know, children, that Saturn is the sixth planet in the solar system, which is present in between Jupiter and Uranus. Saturn is considered as the second largest planet in the solar system. That is, Jupiter is the first largest planet in Saturn is the second largest planet, right? So similar to Jupiter, it is made up of gas. So we can consider the Saturn as the second gas planet, right? The first gas planet which we studied was Jupiter, right? And the second gas planet which we are going to study is Saturn. So because of this gas which is present in the Saturn, it makes it the lightest planet, right? So it is the second largest planet in the solar system, the sixth planet in the solar system. It is made up of gas, which makes it the lightest planet. Lightest means how much light? Saturn is so light that it could float in water, right? So it is so light, right? Let us see one picture of Saturn. Yes, you can see the picture of this Saturn, right? This planet is encircled by thin rings which are over 160,000 miles in diameter, and these rings appear from a distance, from a particular distance it appears to be solid, but they are in fact made up of billions of snowballs, and that is why they are very smooth. So Saturn's moons keep the rings in a banded pattern, as you can see here. These rings form the banded pattern, and there are at least 18 moons which belongs to this planet, which makes a banded pattern around it. So this is about Saturn. Let us study more about Saturn. Yes, it takes about 291.5 years to finish one revolution around the sun. So you can just imagine that how many years it takes to just take one revolution around the sun. Saturn is most well known for its rings, and these rings are formed by water, ice and rocky particles with icy coatings. As we discussed, that they are made up of billions of snowballs, right? So the rings are actually held in place around Saturn by the moons. As we discussed, that there are at least 18 moons, right? So because of these moons, the rings are held in the place and these moons also orbit around this large planet. And how they orbit around this large planet? It is all because under the influence of gravity. The influence of gravity of these moons cause the gaps that are seen in between the rings of the Saturn, and this makes a Saturn a beautiful ring planet, right? Even there is one interesting moon named as Titan, which is surrounded by its own atmosphere. Means it contains a lot of nitrogen, which is similar to Earth's atmosphere. As you know, children, that Earth comprises of 78% of nitrogen, right? So in the same way, there is one interesting moon of Saturn named as Titan, which contains a lot of nitrogen. It is possible that Titan has liquid water on its surface, but Saturn itself has no solid surface. As the planet, this is a gas planet which is mostly made up of hydrogen and helium gas, right? So the planet is so far from the sun that it takes more than 29 Earth years for Saturn to orbit once. That means more than, we can say that 29.5 years, not 291, sorry, I spelled it wrong. It is 29.5 years, right? To finish, it takes about 29.5 years to finish one revolution around the sun, right? So we can say that approximately it takes 29 Earth years for Saturn to orbit once. A day, however, is shorter than an Earth day, as Saturn makes one full rotation about every 10 hours. So you can just imagine that same way as Jupiter spins, Saturn also spins very fast. In many ways, Saturn is similar to Jupiter, but it is much smaller. It is the second largest planet, as we discussed, right? and it is also a gas giant like Jupiter, because under the clouds of methane gas, which is present on Saturn, hydrogen and helium, the sky gradually turns into liquid until it becomes a giant ocean of liquid chemicals. So we can say that Saturn is the least dense planet in our solar system, because it is mostly made up of the hydrogen and helium, which are the two lightest elements in the universe, and thus these gases make Saturn the lightest planet that we know of, right? So this is why we would not weigh as much on Saturn as we weigh or as we think of its size, right? Because Saturn is very light. Now you will be just thinking that it is so large planet, it is the second largest planet, so how much weight it would be there? But it is not true. Every large thing is not heavy, right? As we can take the beautiful example of a Saturn, right? Saturn is actually very light in weight, right? It does not have as much as gravity as other planets have, right? Interestingly, it is believed that Saturn would actually be able to float in water, because the hydrogen and helium that makes up this planet are very lightweight, right? So because of this lightweight, Saturn can even float, right? So this is its lightness, right? Yes. There are other things also, like because Saturn is such a lightweight planet and it spins so fast, Saturn is not perfectly round in shape like most of the other planets. Like Jupiter, Saturn is also wider in the middle and more narrow near its top and bottom, right? So this is the planet with a beautiful ring, and it is the lightest planet. Saturn is a very favorite object or favorite planet for many observers, for many astronomers also. But the rings are amazingly thin. If we turn the rings on their side, they would be able to fit between the goalposts of even a football field. So they are so thin, right? The rings are split into some categories like ring A, B, C, and these rings are not solid, but rather they are made up of the particles of ice, dust and rocks, right? So the rings are held in place because of this only, right? So this is what makes Saturn a beautiful planet with the rings. Let us now study other planet. Yes, Uranus. Uranus is the seventh planet in the solar system, which is present between Saturn and Neptune. It is about 4 times the size of the Earth, but compared to its large neighbor, that is Saturn, Uranus appears very small. So we can say that Uranus is also not such a big planet, but it is bigger than the Earth but smaller than the Saturn. Like Saturn, Uranus is also a gas planet, so this is the third gas planet which we are studying. It has also rings, but it is different from the other gas planets, like we studied about Jupiter and Saturn, right? They are also gas planets, but remember, all the gas planets are not the same. Uranus is also a gas planet and has rings like Saturn, but it is different from other gas planets. Let us have a look at Uranus. Yes, this is a picture of Uranus. This is not so clear, but somewhat clear, right? So for one thing, Uranus actually contains gases in it, because of which it appears in this color. So let us now study more about Uranus. Yes, it revolves around the sun once every 84 years, right? And Uranus contains methane gas in addition to hydrogen and helium, and because of this methane gas, it causes this planet to appear blue-green in color, right? And one amazing thing, that Uranus has 27 moons, right? So many moons it has, right? Okay, so there are the 5 largest moons are there, just like Saturn has, just like Jupiter has. Even the average distance between the Uranus and the Sun is about 1.75 billion miles, right? Which is about 20 times the distance between the Earth and the Sun, right? In the great distance between the Sun and the Uranus causes a year on Uranus to last a very long time. Means what we discussed, that it revolves around the sun once every 84 hours. Why? Because of the distance between the sun and the Uranus. A day on Uranus is shorter than an Earth day, that is at just 17 hours. Like Earth need to revolve, an Earth need to have 24 hours to complete one revolution, but Uranus takes just 17 hours to make one revolution, right? Because it spins very fast. So Uranus, being the 7th planet from the sun, has its spin axis almost in the plane of its orbit around the sun, right? And because of this, it produces unusual seasons and it causes unique magnetic and electric field, right? And because of this, it has a faint ring system. A ring system which is very faint. We are not able to see the ring, right? Like Jupiter and Saturn, Uranus is a gas planet, a gas giant, but it is a little different. Like it has 27 moons, and even Uranus spins on its own side. Even it is believed that long ago a very large object smashed into this planet, and the crash was so powerful that it completely changed the direction of the Uranus rotation. Rotation means which spins on its own axis, right? So however, a more recent theory is that the extreme tilt of the Uranus axis may have been caused by a large moon that was slowly pulled away from the planet by another large planet long ago, when our solar system was still new, when our solar system was still evolving, right? So it is thought that the gravitational pull of this moon moving away from the Uranus may have caused a tilt on its side, and because of this the direction has changed, right? So like Saturn, the Uranus is also a thick atmosphere which is made up of methane, hydrogen and helium, but Uranus is extremely cold planet, and that is why it is also called as the ice giant, because it is very cold and it is made up of these major gases, methane, hydrogen and helium, and that is why it is termed as a ice giant also. It is believed that Uranus is made up of some rocks and ice and has a large rocky core, right? And because of this tremendous planetary pressure of Uranus, there could possibly be trillions of large diamonds on this planet because of its planet rotation, right? So scientists believe that on the surface of Uranus there may be a huge ocean, and interestingly it is thought that temperature of this ocean may be extremely hot, maybe even as hot as 5000 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Or we can say that 2760 Celsius, right? So Uranus is almost identical to the planet Neptune, but not totally identical. Uranus has also rings, but they don't stretch out as far as the rings of the Saturn, and that is why they appear very faint. Even the Uranus rings are also made up of black dust particles and large rocks. So this is all about Uranus, right? Now let us move on to other planet. Yes, the other planet which we are going to discuss is Neptune. Neptune is the 8th planet from the Sun, which is present between Uranus and Pluto. And the distance between the Neptune and the Sun averages almost 2.8 billion miles. So you can just imagine that how far it is. Neptune completes an orbit around the Sun just once every 165 years, but it rotates approximately every 16 hours. Means it takes even less time as compared to Earth, because Earth needs to complete its revolution in 24 hours, but it rotates approximately every 16 hours, right? So one rotation needs 24 hours of Earth and 16 hours for Neptune, exactly, right? So always remember that Earth moves or rotates on its own axis in 24 hours, in every 24 hours, but this takes approximately 16 hours, which is less than the Earth. But it takes 165 years to orbit around the Sun. So it is so, because of, this is because of the distance between the Sun and the Neptune, right? Now let us have a look at the picture of the Neptune. Right, this is the picture of a Neptune. Right, yes, this is the planet which rotates approximately every 16 hours, and it is a stormy blue planet with a molten rock core, and around this core there is a layer of very cold water which moves gradually into top layer of hydrogen, helium and a small amount of methane. So let us study more about Neptune. Yes, it is a stormy blue planet which we discussed, right? It also has hydrogen, helium and a small amount of methane, and because of this methane it gives the planet its blue color, right? And like other gas planets, Neptune has also rings. Like Neptune's rings are made up of small dark clumps of rocks, and it has almost 8 moons, right? And the largest moon out of these 8 moons, known moons, is Triton, which has nitrogen on its surface, right? So this is something about Neptune, which is the 8th planet and the farthest planet from the sun. It is a very cold planet. It is very cold. Its bluish color is caused by the small amount of methane gas in the atmosphere, right? And it is also a very narrow, faint ring, but not like Saturn. Neptune is considered to be the smallest of the 4 gas giants in our solar system. Much like the Saturn and Uranus, Neptune's atmosphere also contains the same, that is hydrogen, helium and methane gas, right? So not much was known about Neptune until it was visited by the spacecraft Voyager 2 in 1989. Voyager 2 was a spacecraft which took many pictures of this planet, and much of what we know about Neptune today came just from a single visit of this spacecraft. And these pictures show a brilliant blue planet with a few thin white clouds lazed around its surface. Because in Neptune's atmosphere there is a large white cloud that moves around rather quickly, just like it spins very fast, right? So when Voyager 2 visited Neptune, its pictures showed a giant storm, much like the storm on the Jupiter. And this storm of Neptune, on the Neptune which was seen, is called the Great Dark Spot, because it appears as a dark oval shape on the surface of the planet while seen from the space. We do not know how long this storm has been active or if it is still present, but most recently even the Hubble Space Telescope sent pictures back to Earth and there was no sign of Great Dark Spot. So once when it was seen, the storm occurred, and it appeared as a dark oval shape, and that is why it was named as the Great Dark Spot. Now it appears or not, it is not actually known, right? Maybe eventually it has faded away, or what has happened, God knows, right? So Neptune is a very windy place. No other planet in the solar system has winds that are as strong as Neptune's. The winds near the Great Dark Spot were believed to have reached nearly 1200 miles per hour. Perhaps this extremely windy atmosphere contributes to the appearance and disappearance of the Great Dark Spots. As we know, even the Neptune has 6 rings which circles the planet, and these rings are they are very faint. The rings are more irregular than the rings of the other planets, and that is why they appear to be very faint. But there are areas of varying thickness throughout these rings, right? So this is something very interesting facts about Neptune. Now let us move on to other topic. We discussed about the Sun and the 8 planets which are present in our solar system, right? Now let us discuss about one more planet which is known as the Dwarf planet. Yes. So in 2006, the International Astronomical Union (IAU) approved a new classification scheme for the planets and smaller objects in our solar system, and their scheme includes 3 classes of objects. First is the small solar system bodies, which includes asteroids and comets. Second was the class of much larger planets which includes the Earth, Jupiter and so on, which studied the 8 planets, and the new category of in-between sized planets, that is the dwarf planets, was introduced in this scheme, right? So one such dwarf planet which we know about is, there are officially 5 dwarf planets, but there is one such planet which we know, which was considered to be a planet before, is Pluto. Yes, exactly. Pluto, formerly the smallest of the 9 traditional planets, is now considered to be as a dwarf planet, right? So this is approved by the International Astronomical Union by their new classification scheme for planets, and it is considered to be the in-between sized planet, or the very smaller planet known as the dwarf planet, right? So Pluto is considered to be the dwarf planet. Alright children, I hope you enjoyed this session and learned about all the planets. You enjoyed learning about all the planets of our solar system. So we will meet in the next session with some information of our solar system, right? We studied about the planets and now we will study about moon in the next session. So till then, keep learning, keep enjoying. Thank you children.